Thank you and welcome back to the continuation of Buncombe County School Board of Education regular meeting. Next on our agenda is the strategic plan highlights. Tonight we'll be hearing about the BCS AIG plan. I'd like to call on Dr. Reed, there you are, to introduce Stephanie Knox. Thank you.
And members of the board, it is my pleasure tonight to introduce to you our incredible AIG specialist, Ms. Stephanie Knox. She's served in Buncombe County Schools as a teacher, a gifted specialist at several schools, and also our coordinator for the last several years. Tonight, the board is being asked to approve our AIG local plan. This is something that comes on the board agenda about every 3 years. And so Ms. Knox will be here to tell you a little bit about our AIG programming, but also specifically about some of the key shifts that you'll see in the local plan tonight. Ms. Knox?
There it is. Hello, Chairman Elliott, Dr. Jackson, and members of the board. I'm here to present the AIG plan for Buncombe County Schools. Started the screen with a Rubik's Cube design of Dr. Jackson by Mrs. Thompson's AIG students at Haw Creek Elementary. That square is so big that it probably is as big as the front of this desk. So just to give you a little bit of the scale. And it was pretty cool, I'm sure, Dr. Jackson, to walk in and see your face in Rubik's Cubes. I love it. Yes. So in the state of North Carolina, we have Article 9B. It's a general statute that defines what gifted is in North Carolina, but then requires every LEA to respond to that definition of giftedness. So I'll just start by kind of skimming this a little bit. It hasn't changed in a long time. It's gifted, academically and intellectually gifted students perform or show the potential to perform at substantially high levels of accomplishment when compared to their peers. We also define gifted students in North Carolina as having outstanding abilities and that require differentiated educational services, and that those abilities are present in students from all cultural groups, across all economic strata, and in all areas of human endeavor. That's the state definition of giftedness. Because of that state definition, the state also requires us to have an AIG plan that we develop every 3 years. We're at the end of a plan cycle, which puts us at the beginning of a new plan cycle. So 24-25, we write the new plan that will be implemented in 25-26. It will be implemented with fidelity, and we will gather stakeholder feedback. And in year 2, we do the same thing. In year 3, which is not so far away, 27-28, we will develop the plan for the next 3-year cycle. And I remember presenting the last few plans in front of many of you. Every 3 years comes really quickly. So in the definition, along with the definition, we have 6 standards in North Carolina that we respond to. Every LEA responds differently. So all plans are not the same. The standards are the same, however, from the state. We have student identification. How do we identify students as gifted? Comprehensive programming within the entire school to serve gifted students. A differentiated curriculum and instruction that we use in our AIG groups and throughout the school. Our personnel and professional development. How do we stay on top of things in gifted education and do what's best for our students? And then our partnerships, not just partnerships in the community, but partnerships with each other, with student to student, student to teacher, AIG specialist to teacher, all throughout the district. And then we have program accountability. How are we holding ourselves accountable that we are meeting these standards? So to create a plan every 3 years, we have input from stakeholders. These are all of the ways that we get input on the plan throughout the 3-year process. I'll draw your attention to the student, parent, teacher, and administrative surveys. We survey our staff, students, teachers, staff, students, teachers, parents, and administrators every year. So much so that they're like, didn't I just do this a little while ago? Yes, you did every year. And we use that feedback to make changes or strengthen areas in our AIG plan, as well as all these other things that you see here. Okay, so I want to talk just a little bit about our AIG by the numbers. We have 21 AIG specialists in Buncombe County Schools, and our state funds 4% of our average daily membership, as you can see there. But we serve 19% of students in Buncombe County Schools. We serve them in lots of different ways. In first and second grade, we have problem solvers. Third grade, we do talent development. We identify students, the vast majority of students in fourth grade, all the way up through 12th grade. And that brings us to 19% of the district. While we're funded at 4%, we're truly committed to serving the gifted students in Buncombe County. So in the 2025-2028 AIG plan, you'll notice some themes if you read it, that we connect and support the strategic plan in a very intentional way, so much so it's like compare this to this, ensuring that student needs are at the center of referral and identification, placement and service, individual talents are developed, and we support educators and engage students based on their unique needs. And create a culture of student-centered programming. That means the student stays at the center of everything we do. Every student stays at the center of everything we do. So here are our changes. We don't have very many this year. 3 years ago, the list was a little bit longer because we were recognized as a promising district. But we are going to add a provisional credentials course for beginning teachers. When beginning teachers start, if they find themselves with a cluster of AIG students in their class, we're going to provide a provisional course that's shorter than our full course that we have now. The criteria for high school placement for CCP qualification, we want more students to be able to take those college courses in 9th and 10th grade, and the state requires they must be AIG in reading and math. Well, we need to make sure that they're placed in reading and math in order to have access to those courses. So we made the criteria such that we can look at their history, their data, their history of performance, and place them more quickly than we would if, let's say, they were a fourth grader. And we also have a specific protocol for grade acceleration in K through 8. We've always had requirements, criteria for students to accelerate a grade level. But now we have a protocol. You do this, then this, then this, and that way it's sort of consistent throughout the district. Our next step is once the board approves the plan, we begin implementation. We send the plan to the Office of Advanced Learning and Gifted Education in Raleigh. They have a team of people who read it. They give us feedback. They look for evidence. Did we answer the standards? It will say evident, not evident, partially evident. Our Buncombe County Schools Promising District had all evident in the last plan, and we will again this time, I feel. And we will receive that feedback and continue this cycle for 3 more years. Do you guys have any questions? Does the board have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Ms. Churchill.
Yes, thank you. This is actually very timely because I was just asked a question about our AIG programs. I was trying to remember kind of back when testing was first started. So are they tested at the end of 3rd grade or is it the beginning of 4th grade?
So we, as a district, do a mass screening at the end of 3rd grade where every student is given the cognitive abilities test, and we look at their EOGs, their cognitive abilities test, and then the vast majority of formal placement does happen at the beginning of 4th grade. Okay. Yes, but we serve kids all the way from kindergarten up in different ways.
Some of those names of things were coming back to me. And then the question was about dual immersion students at that grade. Are they also
They are also,
then?
yes, they are also tested. Our dual immersion, our dual language students do very well. We have lots of dual language students who are served through problem solvers, talent development, and gifted programming. Yes.
Okay.
Lots of students in those programs.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Churchill. Any other questions or discussion from the board related to our AIG plan. Ms. Knox, thank you so much for all you do for our students, for our school system.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate all the accolades that you've brought forward here for us, and we will be voting on your plan here in the consent agenda. So
All right, thank you so much.
thank you very much. Next up on our agenda is public comment. Attorney Dean Shatley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone. It's now time for public comment. As a reminder, speakers will be called in the order in which they signed up. All speakers will have 3 minutes to speak. There is a timer, I think, on the other side of the dais over there. The yellow light will light up when you have 30 seconds left. We ask speakers to adhere to the guidelines set forth in school board policy. We also ask that you refrain from profane language, making threats, or revealing confidential staff or student information. We ask that you also address the board as a whole, and while the board is listening, please note that they generally do not respond directly to public comment. Turn over to Mr. Reeves.
Mr. Chair, there are 7 people signed up for public comment tonight. First is Yvonne Hides.
Just start? Okay. My name is Yvonne Hicks. I'm a Buncombe County resident and property owner. I've lived in North Carolina since 1997, the last 4 years in Western North Carolina. And since moving to Western North Carolina, I found out through various sources about the pornographic books in the school libraries. I've heard and researched about the impact of gender ideology on the mental health of our youth, and about the grooming as well as the threats of taking away parental rights. And then found out the huge gap, particularly in the county, between wages earned and the cost of housing. So at the last board meeting, you asked for a $4 million increase in salaries and for more social workers and nurses, which I found troubling. First, based on the statistics from the North Carolina Board of Education from the 2023 to 2024 school year, almost 70% of the schools in Buncombe County from elementary to high school had received C, D, and F grades. And so the results for me do not warrant raises, nor do we need more social workers or nurses, as that will only produce more of the same results. And second, as an ordained minister and a Patriot Academy Constitution coach, I do want to extend these comments to parents in the community at large. Not only did our founding fathers recognize the sovereignty of an almighty creator, they based our founding as a constitutional republic on his truths, as you can find in the Declaration of Independence and supported by the U.S. Constitution. And our state leaders did as well. The North Carolina State Constitution, the preamble says, "We the people of the state of North Carolina, grateful to Almighty God, the sovereign ruler of nations, for the preservation of the American Union and the existence of our civil, political, and religious liberties, and acknowledging our dependence upon him for the continuance of those blessings to us and our posterity, due for the more certain security thereof and for the better government of the state, ordained and established this Constitution." Article 9 applies that to education. So Almighty God, through his written word, declares there are only 2 genders, only women can have babies, and it's clear that the primary responsibility for training up children lies with parents, and that there are serious consequences for causing children harm. So, and quite frankly, without following biblical precepts, there are no children. Our birth rates as a nation are spiraling downward, so there will be no posterity. So that's it. I want to thank you for listening, and just please take heed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Olivia, is it Harjes?
Hello, my name is Olivia Harges and my pronouns are he, they. I go to Inc. Intermediate, and at my school I found other kids who are queer. I especially want to talk about people who are genderqueer. I know other kids who are genderqueer and don't feel comfortable coming out to their parents. I want to create a safe space or a group for queer or questioning individuals, but I'm unable to do so because of the Parent Bill of Rights. I agree that if a student joins an after or before school club, the parent should have to give permission. But if the group is during school, then why would the parent need to give permission? I just want to make a safe space, but all of these laws are trying to stop me. The people who wrote these laws wrote them to stop people like me, but that does not mean they're correct. I'm asking you to make decisions that make being a genderqueer person like myself feel more supported. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jerry Nugent.
Good evening. My name is Jerry Nugent, and I'm going to be reading from a letter today that was sent to, that is from a superintendent. After superintendents were sent a letter asking them to certify that they are not using illegal DEI practices, and I'm really hoping, Dr. Jackson, that your response was similar to this one. In response to this edict from the Trump administration giving every school district only 10 days to respond, one brave district superintendent wrote this: still not signing. A superintendent's response to the Department of Education's anti-DEI ultimatum. To whom it may unfortunately concern at the U.S. Department of Education, thank you for your April 3rd memorandum, which I read several times, not because it was legally persuasive, but because I kept checking to see if it was satire. Alas, it appears you are serious. You've asked me, as superintendent of a public school district, to sign a certification declaring that we are not violating federal civil rights laws by apparently acknowledging that civil rights issues still exist. You cite Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, then proceed to argue that offering targeted support to historically marginalized students is somehow discriminatory. If we acknowledge racial disparities, that's racism. If we help English language learners catch up, that's favoritism. If we give a disabled child a reading aid, we're denying someone else the chance to struggle equally. And if we train teachers to understand bias, we're indoctrinating them. But if we train them to ignore it, we're restoring neutrality? Let's talk about our English language learners. Would you like us to stop offering translation services during parent-teacher conferences? Should we cancel bilingual support staff to avoid the appearance of special treatment? Or would you prefer we just teach all content in English and hope for the best? What's your stance on IEPs? Because last I checked, individual education plans intentionally gave students with disabilities extra support. Should we start removing accommodations to avoid offending the able-bodied majority? Maybe if a student with a learning disability receives extended time on a test, should we now give everyone else extended time, even if they don't need it, just to keep the playing field sufficiently flat and unthinking? Your letter paints equity as a threat, but equity is not the threat. It's the antidote to decades of failure. Equity is what ensures all students have a fair shot. Equity is what makes it possible for a child with a speech impediment to present at the science fair. It's what helps the nonverbal kindergartner use an AAC device. It's what gets the newcomer from Ukraine the ESL support she needs.
Thank you.
Sandra Roberts.
Good evening. My name is Sandra Roberts. In this school year, I have devoted my time to get an accurate representation of how the student body at Kuntz Intermediate feels about uniforms. This meant hours of research, talking to other students, and even organizing stands and surveys for each and every student to fill out so every voice could be heard this year. In mine and my two older sisters' experiences at Kuntz, uniforms have decreased and demolished our self-worth, value, and perspectives on ourselves because of how we were unable to express ourselves and be individuals, to be human, different from others. But instead, during those years, we were limited to being and dressing like everyone else. These years of our lives, our preteen years, are crucial to shaping a person. It's when most people begin to learn and realize who we are, our style, and everything about ourselves inside and out. And most people who have had to wear uniforms were and are very confused about themselves. Last year, when I still wasn't fully able and used to express myself in other ways, I was very confused. I didn't know what I liked wearing, what I enjoyed, or much else about myself. That was one of the darkest years in my life. This year, I had to learn how to only express myself with makeup, jewelry, shoes, and other accessories. It's unfair that I had to learn how to shove all my emotions and feelings into eyeshadow and earrings. Every person has the right to express themselves the way they wish, but the students at Kuntz can't do that. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Brandon Roberts.
Good afternoon, board members. My daughter there that just spoke has led the cause this year to do away with the uniforms. She has spent many hours, upwards of 100+ hours doing research, putting together slideshows, presentations with Mr. Bright over the year, to put together the surveys, to have the push to get the student votes, to hear the student voices, and not just the parents or partial of the parents. This has been an issue for several years at Kuntz. I've actually had friends that pulled their kids out of the school system and homeschooled them because their child felt out of place in the uniforms. This is not just a 1 year that this has been a problem. This has been a voice for many years now. It's time that this school uniform for Kuntz be brought to an end. It was supposed to be a temporary thing, and it's only been held to the Kuntz Intermediate School. In my opinion, if this should have went on, or there should have been any basis for this to continue, then the board should have already implemented this into the rest of the school system. Please find it this evening to end the uniforms at Kuntz. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah Wilcox.
First, I just want to start by celebrating the kids using their voices today. I'm reminded the kids are going to be all right. I'm the Reverend Sarah Wilcox. My student attends Reynolds High School. Each time the Parent Advisory Council meets, we gather in the school library, and I marvel at the space and the intention of librarians who seek to open the world to our kids and expand their world. While some of our kids will travel to Japan on a school trip, most of them will not. The capacity to understand beyond our own borders and boundaries, it comes from exposure. This is why we see a very strong effort by many, especially those targeting school boards, schools, and books to ensure their kids have no access to ideas beyond their own beliefs. One of my favorite childhood books was The Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein. While working on my divinity degree, I was in a class discussing sin. The conversation that unfolded was one that I had not considered before, as the professor named that 4th and 5th century theologian, St. Augustine, believed the primary sin was pride. The professor asked us to read an article suggesting that gender may impact that truth. As most know about the tree in the Giving Tree, the article discussed self-forgetting as the primary sin of women. Much like the story, and for many generations, women have given to their detriment, sometimes everything for their children, their spouses, their church, the world. While pride can be a danger for many, self-forgetting is also something that separates you from your belovedness and the Holy One who created you. June is Pride Month for our queer community. Those in power continue to jeopardize the safety and protections that exist for our queer families, students, and neighbors. Some even like to suggest that pride is sinful to further justify their intolerance. Our queer community is seeking to emerge from a world that has long required their self-forgetting. Today, people in power are forcing the forgetting of the queer community, of our history of racial injustice, of the value of science and education. The sin of self-forgetting jeopardizes the abundant life that God dreams for us all. The hopes for the month of June, calling attention to the queer community in its name of pride, is about living authentically, living fully, living without shame, refusing to be forgotten. If we want to explore sin, it would be worth seeing that the scripture speaks to the issue of the poor more than any other. There are 6 known clobber passages addressing sexuality. I'm happy to provide a Bible study on that to faithfully explore their context and intention. But the poor, there are more verses on that than any other. Currently, we see school budget cuts, the federal government targeting fruits and vegetables for breastfeeding moms, Medicaid, and basic protections for the many people who long have been forgotten. So let's forget no one. Thank you to our students, our staff, administration, and those who show up in the fullness of who they are and for who they love. May we continue to be a community that celebrates the pride of those who many are seeking to force self-forgetting on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Craig White.
I'm Craig White, the Supportive Schools Director for the Campaign for Southern Equality, and I'm going to scrap my prepared remarks tonight. When I spoke last month, I invited you into some summer homework, which was to spend some time listening to a gender diverse, gender expansive, gender creative young person over the summer. Some of them have come to speak to you tonight, so your homework is completed. Well done. I would encourage you, though, over the summer months, while you're taking a break, keep your eyes and ears open for family members, friends, neighbors, and other young people in your lives that do not fit into that rigid binary gender world. We've heard from speakers tonight, elders who are accustomed to that world, where that world feels safe and familiar, and a change feels like a threat. And then the very next speaker was a young person asking you to make our schools safe for genderqueer children. That's your challenge. Dr. Jackson, I heard your comments tonight talking about connection and care, talking about together we rise. And yeah, you know, we've disagreed on other things, but we agree on that together we rise. We need some healing here. I don't see it coming from the federal government. I don't see it coming from Raleigh. I think it has to happen here in our community. How do we build these bridges between these different worldviews? How do we build these bridges when people of color and their allies are saying we need to address these racial disparities, while the federal government is saying even naming racism harms white people and silencing those conversations? How do we heal those divisions? My invitation to you again is not just to listen now, but to speak as well. If you're conservative, if you're liberal, if you're progressive, if you're libertarian, if you're religious, I don't care. See if you can find a moment this summer to bring some healing where now you find division, to bring some healing where you find difference, to bring some love where you find hate. I'll be doing that as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, that concludes public comment.
Thank you very much. With that, we'll move on to our action agenda. First on the agenda is the approval of the summer school contracts. We have Tina Thorpe here with us, I believe. If there are any questions, board members, do you have any questions?
I do have a
Ms.
question.
Clemens, go ahead.
And so this is the summer school contracts for employees and the lead person, which is like the principal on site or whatever. I got asked this question. How are those folks paid? Are they paid, is a teacher paid the teacher's salary? Do they get their supplement? Does the lead person get a bonus? I mean, how does that work?
Thank you for the question, Ms. Clemens. Ms. Thorpe is coming to the podium, and she'll be happy to answer that question for you.
board members. They are paid on their base pay for the daily rate of pay for whatever salary schedule they are on from the state of North Carolina.
So whatever their, but basically there wouldn't be a difference in that pay that they get for working the summer as they would, I mean, it'd be the same thing that they get
Throughout the year.
other 10 months. What about supplements?
They do not get the local supplement.
Is there a reason why we don't?
Yes, it's based on the state funding. Most of the summer academy money was from state 230, PRC 230.
Okay,
And they will be covering those salaries.
okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Clemens. Any other questions from the board? Thank you, Ms. Thorpe. I'll entertain a motion to approve this action item addendum. Is there a second? A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Next on the action agenda, we have the Kuntz Intermediate School uniforms. We have Dr. Reed and Reggie Bright here with us. Are there any further discussion points on that from either of you? Okay. Board members, do you have any questions for?
I just had
About
a
this.
quick comment.
Yes.
Thank you for taking the time to spend this past year collecting data and talking with all stakeholders. I especially want to thank Ms. Roberts for doing what she did, because you're right, it is the students that need to have a strong voice. And I think especially in this day and age, we need to make sure that y'all have hope in how our civics and the process of voting and democracy works. And I think it was a great civics lesson. So thank you very much for putting in what I'm sure was a lot of extra weekend time that you could have been doing other things. And Mr. Bright, thank you for having the leadership to have students like Ms. Roberts and her friends put all this together.
All right, thank you. With that, any other questions or discussion amongst the board? All right, hearing none, I will ask for a motion to approve the Kuntz Intermediate School uniforms proposal. Got a motion? And there's a second?
You may want to explain what the motion actually, what the proposal is. Since
Is to remove the requirement for, the motion would be school uniforms, to remove the requirement for Kuntz Intermediate School students to wear school uniforms. So moved, so again, and then second.
Yeah,
Any
can
further
I ask,
discussion?
I just want to ask one question. I did not realize we had a school that had uniforms, so shame on me. Do we have any other schools that have that requirement? Okay, just asking the question. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. One high five. There'll be many more, it sounds like. Okay, third action item we need to dive into is Ms. Churchill's request for the agenda item addition to briefly discuss school capacity issues in TC district. With that, I know our superintendent, Dr. Jackson, has some information to share, and we'll have some brief discussion around that point. Is that fine, Ms. Churchill? Yes. Okay, thank you. All yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Thank you, Ms. Churchill, for bringing forth this item this evening. There has been conversation throughout the community about the capacity and the size of our schools and the impact of the growth in southern Buncombe County. As the board is aware, each year the board receives the enrollment and facilities report, typically with the local budget request. And in that document, there's a lot of information. And so this evening, I've pulled back into that document specific information from the Robertson District to at least allow the board a foundation to base the conversation that you may want to have this evening on. And so referring to that, the most recent 2024 Enrollment and Facilities Report that was presented in April of this year, and we first take a look at the T.C. Robertson District membership trends. And so from 2014 to 2024, in that spaghetti-like graphic there, what you see is each of the schools, and you see the numbers of students they had going back to 2014. The takeaway is certainly growth, ebbs and flows as various things have happened throughout the community. You see T.C. Robertson High School, which is our largest school in the school system, way at the top in that bright green, and you see it mirrors the ebbs and flows we see for the other schools in the Robertson District. In the same facilities and capacity report, you receive a document titled Membership 2024 versus 2023, Best One of Two. The state funds the school system using a best one of two allotment mechanism so that they look at our membership over the last 2 years and fund at the highest level, which is certainly something we appreciate because we do realize that growth happens and there is ebb and flow to our membership. And so to make this a little easier, you see the Robertson District is there at the bottom for each of our schools. You see our actual grade level enrollment. This document is also available to the public. It's linked in our April meeting, so if the public would like to go a deeper dive into the document, it's there as well. But looking at the Robertson District, I thought it would be helpful as I was working a little earlier this afternoon in my office to show you our 8th month enrollment based on what's called a PMR, a Principals Monthly Report. Our principals are required by the state to submit a report on their membership every school month. A school month is 20 school days. And so what I have on this document are the last 3 years for month 8. One of the things that we recognize in this moment is that the hurricane had an impact on our enrollment. So the fourth column from the left, when looking at the screen, is our 2022-2023 enrollment for the T.C. Robertson District schools. If we move to the left one column, you see 2023-2024, and if we move again to the left, the 2024-2025 school year, that is the next to the last month of the school year. We're currently in month 9. And so you notice the column on the far right, that's the difference between last year and this year at the same point in time, the end of month 8, based on the principals' monthly reports from each of the schools. We notice that across the district that we are down 80 students. I believe that is directly tied to the impact of the hurricane, and you'll see how that flows across each of the schools in the Robertson District. I do note, though, when I look between 2022-2023 and 2023-2024, I'm able to see growth that's not impacted by the hurricane, and there I see the Robertson District grew by about 100 students, again at that same point in time. So we were seeing consistent growth in the Robertson District until the hurricane this year, and we're certainly hopeful to see our students return. In that same facilities report, our team works hard to give the Board of Education a projection of each of our schools using matriculation of our grade levels. So first graders become second graders become third graders. They also look at the birth rate in Buncombe County, recognizing that we typically in public schools have 66% of the children who are born in Buncombe County show up in Buncombe County schools in our kindergarten at the appropriate time. And so to make this a little easier to read, I've blown it up so we can see the T.C. Robertson District. You'll note that the chart is color-coded based on capacity, and so it's a yellow or a green, yellow, and red color. The school that's currently in red is Estes Elementary. There are measures of capacity. There's actually 3 different measures of capacity because capacity depends on how we define that. Functional capacity is all the students in a brick and mortar building, not necessarily in a modular classroom. Then there's theoretical or common core capacity, which starts to look at program spaces within the building, like the size of the media center, size of the cafeteria, et cetera. And then DPI, which is the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, has a statewide capacity calculator. And so you have the opportunity to look at, for each of the schools, you've got the entire district in that report you received in April, but here on the screen for T.C. Robertson, you can see the functional capacity of the schools, the DPI capacity, the theoretical common core capacity, and the core capacity of the cafeteria and the media center as well. The chart also lists where we have modular classrooms, the number of those modular classrooms in use, and then the functional utilization rate of the school. And so you'll see that Avery's Creek is currently at 89% of its capacity, Glen Arden at 93%, Estes at 104%, Koontz at 78%, Cane Creek at 63%, and Valley Springs Middle School at 63%. As this is the first time I've mentioned Cane Creek, I'll remind the board that Cane Creek has a unique feeder pattern in that it accepts students from Fairview Elementary School as a part of its normal feeder pattern who are Reynolds District students for elementary and then high school. It also accepts students from Glen Arden Elementary School who matriculate through Koontz Intermediate, Cane Creek Middle School, and then back to T.C. Robertson High School. And so Cane Creek is listed here as well, as it is a part of both feeder patterns in the Reynolds District and the T.C. Robertson District. For information, we have in the report transfers into Buncombe County schools by school. This looks at the number of charter school students who come into our schools by school, the number of private or parochial students who arrive, homeschool students. You'll see the word city, and that refers to our city school system, the Asheville City School System, and those students who previously have been online students. And so you see the number of transfers into our school system. And for the 2024-2025 school year, at the time of this report, in April, we had received 541 students into our district from those other areas. As I break that out to make it a little easier to see, this is the T.C. Robertson District, the number of transfers into the schools from those various areas, charter, private, homeschool, Asheville City Schools, and then online. And so you can see that T.C., the high school received 42 students this year, Glen Arden received 9, Estes received 15, et cetera. All of the schools received students from those areas this year. We certainly appreciate that, and I'll pause for editorial comment. This is a choice world. Parents have lots of choices. We believe Buncombe County schools, our traditional public schools, are the best choice, and we certainly take it as a compliment when parents choose to send their students to our school system, and so we're very appreciative of that. There are also students who choose to transfer out of our school system, and certainly we welcome them to return at any point. But we track that by school as well, and so you have the information in that report for all 45 of the schools in Buncombe County schools, along with under charter schools on the bigger report, you'll see which charter schools those students arrived into our schools from. Looking closer at the T.C. Robertson District, you'll notice this is the transfers out for the high school, middle school, Cane Creek, Avery's Creek, Estes, and Glen Arden, and you'll see those numbers lower than the transfers in. T.C. Robertson had 30 transfer out, Valley Springs 12, Cane Creek 12, Avery's Creek 9, Estes 12, and Glen Arden 8. And so just to put it all in one place, here are the net transfers, so the number of students who transferred in from those areas, the number who transferred out from those areas by the schools, and then the net. So you'll see there's a net positive in the T.C. Robertson District of 38 students transferring in. Again, I'll note this is the 2024-2025 school year, and certainly enrollment and transfers have been impacted by Hurricane Helene. So we're seeing growth in terms of transfers even in a year where we've had so much impact from the hurricane. This is a tracking of the 2024 residential building permits by elementary attendance area. It shows all of our elementary schools and the number of permits that have been given out. You'll notice it also lists by district, and so at the bottom of this graphic you'll see that the T.C. Robertson District for the 2024 year had 263 permits, And it goes on to mention 1,100, almost 1,200 units, including 29 multifamily residents in the T.C. Robertson district. As I click and nothing happens, I turn to the computer and use the button. As we look at residential single and multifamily building permits by school district, in the bottom right corner, you'll see the Robertson district, and you'll notice that the elementary school districts that had the highest, the top 5 with the highest number of permits are highlighted in yellow. Among those are Avery's Creek. On this graphic, you have the number of permits by 2023 and the year 2024. So you can take a look at 2 years. And so we do note that in 2023 in the Robertson district, there were 335 permits. In 2024, 263. As we look at permit trends for the last 6 years by each of our 6 traditional high school attendance areas, you'll see that graphic there. Again, the ebbs and flows. The Robertson district is in the lighter blue colored, and so you'll see that there was a peak in 2021, a drop in 2022, again peaked in 23, and back down in 2024. This is a listing of major subdivisions with impacted Buncombe County schools. So these are large subdivisions that have been permitted. You have the number of proposed lots in those subdivisions. I've used my editing skills, and on the finance report, put a Rams head there, Mr. Allison. Go Rams. You'll see the proposed number of lots for the Avery's Creek attendance area. You'll see, or major subdivisions rather, and then the proposed number of lots in those subdivisions, those in the Estes Elementary School attendance area and those in the Glen Arden Elementary School attendance area. In 2024, again, the latest data available to us, these are the number of new major subdivisions. So these are in addition to those that were already permitted. And again, you'll see those primarily in terms of new major subdivisions for 2024. Those were in the Avery's Creek area. And you'll see the number of lots that are proposed in those subdivisions. And so I simply wanted to give the board a jumping off point for any conversation you'd like to have this evening. Again, would refer you to the entirety of the facilities and capacity report. As you know, there's been some conversation with our commissioners about capacity of our schools. And so when they ask if we track this data, I was proud to say we certainly do. We present it to our Board of Education annually. It's a quite thorough report, and it's available on our website, each of those previous reports. Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I would note Ms. Thorpe and Mr. Wyatt, who are the primary authors of this study, are also available to answer any questions that the board might have, and the administration stands ready to take copious notes.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson, very much for that extremely thorough dive into school capacities. Quickly, I just have a couple of questions before I ask the board for questions as well, but can you remind me the definition of functional utilization rate percentage? Is that simply the functional capacity divided by, or vice versa, I guess, the membership divided by the functional capacity?
It's a division there. You're right about that. But function is another example, is based on our classroom size requirements for EC, exceptional children, and all those are built into what the true function can be used for.
I just noticed something stuck out for some reason, but Avery's Creek, because I was looking at the number of permits that seemed to be extremely heavy in the Avery's Creek attendance zone. When I look back at the functional utilization rate, Avery's Creek, I guess, currently is at 89%.
That is correct, Mr. Chair. And as you're aware, the permitted lots are not yet built. Right. And so currently, based on that document in 2024, we're not at 100% utilization of Avery's Creek.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. And then just the numbers and out years of, we go from 528 down to 162 in 2029 and 2030. I'm not sure. All the rest of them are kind of either growing or kind of staying flat. That just stuck out to me as a bit of an anomaly, I guess, but I'm not sure if that's.
I'll have to research what you're asking.
Sorry, I don't mean to.
It's okay.
I hate calling out stuff.
It's
It
all right.
just- But when I noticed it, I was thinking about the fact that Estes, their functional utilization rate right now is at 104%. Avery's at 89, and the bulk of the permit in these subdivisions is primarily going in Avery's Creek right now, at least. So that's just an observation. That's all. Any other questions from the board? Reverend Martin?
So when we're looking at the permits, I live out in Arden, so I don't want us to get ahead of ourselves when we're looking at permits, because most permits, it does not mean that children are gonna live in a certain location. Because I do know there is apartment complex that is built out there, but only 3 kids get on the bus. So I don't think we need to assume that because we have a bunch of permits that it means I got that much kids moving in.
You're exactly right, Reverend Martin, and our facilities team works hard to understand, as you're aware, sometimes price point determines about what we can expect in terms of number of students, and we do pay close attention, particularly to those neighborhoods that might be built for a very specific age group. They're apartments and living opportunities for retirees, and so typically we would not have students in those areas. And so we do try to make sure that we're not just taking a raw number, but we're understanding the story behind the number.
And another question.
Sure.
So if, this might be a Clark thing. So if Estes has to grow in building size, do we have enough land to even try to do that? And that smile makes me wonder.
We currently have a long-range plan with the capacity to add on 2 SDs with the current property. Classrooms at the end of each wing. Plus, we currently have some mobile units there as well that could be relocated or removed throughout a process should we need to add classrooms, additional classrooms.
So,
Reverend Martin?
Sorry.
Good? Ms. Churchill?
Can I ask? a
Oh,
question?
yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Ms. Lemon, go ahead.
So, being a part of the Capital Commission, you know, what concerns me is the fact that we're not gonna have very much money to spend in the next several years. And we need to remember that. But it's necessary. As a parent or a grandparent, I'd be really concerned with kids that are in classrooms that are, 30 kids plus or whatever. So it's a real problem, and I said it last month, I wish we could just write a check and build a school, but realistically, how long would it be in your estimate? I know you can't tell me for sure, but for us to come up with enough money to help Estes?
Well, not only enough money, but to, start the design process. So
Yeah, that's
once
true.
you gotta have the money, and then you start the design. So if you started today, you're a year and a half, 2 years away from using those classrooms easily.
Yeah. Well, I definitely agree that this needs to be looked at. So is that something we can get the team to do, Dr. Jackson?
Thank you for the question. Certainly, at the board's direction, our team can begin to look at and continue to look at not only what we have, but begin to look at what potential solutions we might bring forward for the board to begin to consider.
Yeah, we get excited in the Irwin district when I see houses go up, and Johnston's one area that I drive the back roads, and, there's lots of those new houses that are built there, but there's no kids there. So, to your point, Jarvis, I think that's a good point. We can't make assumptions, even about housing, whether it's apartments or houses. So, but I definitely think it's something that we need to look at now, because we're not going to be able to wait on the money that it would take to renovate.
Thank you, Ms. Clemens. Ms. Churchill.
And so that was going to essentially be my questions also. And again, just why it's, I think, very important that we start looking at this now, because of the fact that we're looking at 2-3 years minimum, and with the changes in how we'll be able to use our Article 39 money. This is not something that I think we can put off, so I appreciate us having this discussion. I appreciate it kind of being a last-minute ad, and want to be able to give you all the time that you need to review things and hopefully come up with a few great options, and maybe find that crystal ball that you've got hidden in one of those closets.
We hope.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Churchill. Any other questions from board members or comments? I think the other thing that this brings to mind for me personally is, you know, the way that our school system has access to capital for building schools, additions to schools, school capital level maintenance is either through Articles 40, 42, or 39, and then lottery, small little teeny amount, supplemental, as they say, but then school bonds is the other means by which our county can raise money for us to undergo capital projects or build schools. And if, my understanding is if school bonds are at play, you know, that can take a rather long time. Dr. Jackson, is it timeline about 2 years for that?
Yes, sir.
So if there were, and school bonds must be voted on by the public in a general type election, right? So there's typically not a special called election for a school bond.
No, sir. To use a general obligation bond, and there's also certificates of participation, but I think what we're talking about is a general obligation bond. That has to be voted on, and certainly the attorney may want to speak to this, in a general election. The next would be in 2026. Before that can happen, there's a lot of work that goes on with the county and the Board of Elections to ensure that we've crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's. And then there's a great need to educate the public on what the purpose of the bond is for, and ensuring that they know what they would be voting on if they were given the opportunity to vote on that. Anything you would add, Mr. Shatley?
No, I mean, that's correct. I still think you can have the election on the primary election, but it does have to be in even number year. So when there's a general election in November. So you're looking out at this point in time, you know, almost a year before we could even potentially have an election. Although it would take roughly 6 to 7 months just to even prepare for that as well. Once it's passed, then the county still has to accept it, and then you've got to go through the entire process with the underwriters, et cetera. And generally what the county has done is finance through limited obligation bonds, which does not, or certificates of participation, which does not require a vote of the public. And that is generally how they have funded capital projects in the past. So that option would be open as well.
Thank you, Dean. Well, board, it sounds like to me through our discussion that there was the beginnings of a motion to be made about our staff to study school capacity issues in the TC district. If so, I'll entertain that motion.
I will happily make that motion.
Is there a second? Second. All right, got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. We got it. Thank you so much for your time in preparing that presentation for us, Dr. Jackson, and thank you, Ms. Churchill, for bringing the matter of importance up to the board. Moving on to our consent agenda, I'll remind our board that if there are any items that you would like to be pulled out of the consent agenda, please signal. Okay. Reverend Martin, which item would you like to discuss?
I would like to pull out the student parking fees.
Okay, student parking fees. How about we go ahead and talk about that item? Do you have questions?
Yes. So first question is, what are the student parking fees used for, or what does it go to for that school? What's the purpose of it?
Good afternoon. The purpose of the student parking fees is 100% used to cover the security guards at the 6 traditional high schools. Plus, we also put another large amount from local dollars to make sure that happens.
And we're going from $60 to $80.
That is
So
the
is that the increase of what we need to pay them?
No, we will still have a small amount coming out of local, but it will help offset it.
How much?
I can get you the exact number.
Because what I'm looking at is that I know going around to the high schools and talking, and especially talking to the kids, that's the first thing they complain about is the parking fee they pay to park on the campus. And pretty much what kids is, well, I know I did it too, so I can't blame parents. We say you pay it, you drive there, you pay, you want to park on campus. But in this environment, do we want to put that strain on the families? Do we necessarily need it to go to up $20?
We need it to offset, we're putting in $154,000 of local dollars to offset it.
Is that monthly?
That's the annual that we're putting in.
Because what I also found out that some kids, because they cannot pay the parking fee, they parking somewhere else close to the campus and walking to the campus. And that's something that I don't want to encourage kids that cannot afford it, that they're gonna walk to school, so that they're gonna drive to a certain location and then walk over to the school. Most of our schools, they are in a place where kids can do that. But I don't wanna see, or can the school offer a waiver for certain things like that where kids can't afford it?
Yes, sir, I'll jump in. So all of our schools have a waiver process for students whose family may not be able to afford the fee. We ask the students to talk with their principal, and then we go through that process. If a principal made a decision and the student or parent wanted to appeal the decision, that could come to my office, and I've not had any of those appeals while I've served. And so it's my understanding that those waivers have been approved as requested by students and families. And so we don't want inability to pay to prevent our students from being able to access the service. The fees, or having fees, is required by board policy. And so, as you know, our budget isn't what we would like it to be. And so one opportunity is to consider the fees. I believe it's been a number of years since there was an increase to the parking fees. However, we serve at the pleasure of the board, and the board can determine if you'd prefer not to change the fees, then we'll continue to sharpen our pencil and make the budget work. But this is the recommendation of the staff based on the cost. And again, all of those fees go to fund the security guards at the high schools. And then they don't generate enough money to cover those funds, which is why we have to use local dollars to be able to have those services.
Can I just ask, Tina, do you remember the last time that we had an increase?
I do not. From the time that I've been in this office, which is 2021 school year, it was $60. I would have to go back and research it. Okay, so Jennifer said it was 2020.
I have some information from my principal that I always get advice from, Mr. Cody. And we are the one that, our district has the least amount of students that drive because they can't afford cars. A lot of kids cannot. And so I always want his opinion. And my eyes just bugged out when I read that Asheville City has a parking fee of $300. Is that right?
Asheville City Schools?
Asheville City Schools? Asheville High? Okay, somebody's shaking their head, yeah. Okay, so maybe $80 is not a problem. I was concerned for my district, I'll be honest with you. But if Mr. Cody thinks that it's something that will not be a big issue, then, you know, I'll support it. I just have to ask his advice.
And we did speak to all of our high school principals before bringing this forward, and they contributed heavily to this proposal that's in front of you this evening.
Okay. That's good to know.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Cheatham.
My one question was, how much of the school day does the security personnel man that gate?
That's a good question.
They're hired 8 hours a day for the whole school year, 185 or however many school days we go.
Okay, thank you.
And I can attest that they are there and they will stop you.
Yeah.
I'm
I
just
can
gonna
attest
leave
to
it at that.
too. I can too. We have a great one at Irwin. We do.
I'll just remind the board, since we pulled this out of the consent agenda, we'll need a motion, one direction or the other, on this particular item.
Increase.
Make a motion to approve the increase? Okay, is there a
I'll
second?
second.
All right, there's a second, motion a second. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Student parking fees are approved. Thank you for that information. Anything else on the consent agenda of concern to the board? Okay. We have minutes, April 25th, 2025, special called work session, minutes from May 1st, 2025, open session, regular meeting, personnel report, June 5th, 2025, 2024-2025, budget amendment number 7, 2025-2026 CTE local plan approval, 2025-2028 AIG local plan approval, we heard about earlier, mandatory catastrophic athletic insurance for 2025-2026, mandatory student athletic insurance for 2025-2026, renewal driver education contract with Mountain Professionals Incorporated for 2025-2026 school year, renewal security guard contract with Guardian Security Services LLC, DBA Signal of Asheville NC for 2025-2026 school year, renewal BCS Aquatic Center management contract with YMCA of Western North Carolina for 2025-2026 school year, a non-competitive procurement request, Teacher Creative Materials Incorporated, non-competitive procurement request, Great Minds PBC, non-competitive procurement request, Emerald Education Incorporated, and we have policies for second reading, policy 3225, 4312, 7320, technology responsible use, policy 7351, 5071, electronic stored information retention. May I have a motion to approve our consent agenda, please? Is there a second? A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, our consent agenda is approved. Next on our agenda is the information agenda. We have our finance reports and our board information, policies for first reading, policy 3220, technology and the educational program. For our announcements this evening and future meetings, the Board of Education will hold a special called meeting on June 30th, 2025 at 1 p.m. in the Minitorium here at 175 Bingham Road in Asheville, North Carolina. The next Board of Education regular meeting, excuse me, that needs to be corrected, I believe. Yes, that should read August the 14th. So our next Board of Education regular meeting will be August 14th, 2025 at 5:30 p.m. in the Minitorium. Work session updates and closed session begin at 4 p.m. in the Executive Conference Room at 175 Bingham Road here in Asheville. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn our meeting.
So moved.
That's a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the meeting's adjourned.